Congratulations, Tampa Bay Lightning, your 2020 Stanley Cup champions, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, everybody. Nick Kypreos here for the Real Kyper at Noon show. Did it really happen? Did we actually pull this off? I had something to do with it. We have a Stanley Cup champion, and that's something that we didn't think was possible 3.5, 4 months ago. But yet, there it is. So congratulations to Jeff Vinik, the owner of Tampa Bay, and everyone on down. John Cooper, Tampa Bay's captain, Steven Stamkos, and we know where that lies, forever known as a great 2 minutes and 47 seconds in the Stanley Cup final for Steven Stamkos. And the players in general, the Players Association, I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke up everyone's ass here, but there's something to be said for putting this together and what might be in the nick of time. We know numbers are going back up. We know there's some issues again in the NFL. Tennessee Titans, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe we'll get Joe or Jordan maybe talk about that a little later on in the show, but numbers are going up. I think we got this in just in the right amount of time here. And whether or not there was even anything left for Game 7 is debatable. And, of course, our thumbnail, was this the toughest Stanley Cup to win? Where does that rank with you? I know the media want to certainly, many of them paint a picture that this was indeed the toughest Stanley Cup to win in all of them. I think when we talk about an athlete, of course, we're talking about the mental aspect of the task in hand and the physical. And what's that famous Yogi Berra line? 90% mental, the other half physical, a yogiism. And maybe that applies to how we all feel. And please let us know in your comments. What do you think? Was it, in fact, the toughest for Tampa? Or maybe some of you say, no, it was the easiest. No travel, therapy, no lack of fluids for any chance of dehydration. You know what travel does for you when it comes to dehydration? So lots to get into in this hour. And we're sure lucky to have Alan May once again join us. Alan, the last time we had you on the show, you pulled a David Copperfield on us. Poof, you disappeared. Is everything okay? Are you back?
Hey, as of noon, the painters are gone. Everything, the house is back in order. So I shouldn't have any problems out on my deck. There's no yard maintenance today, nothing. So I think we're back to normal.
Good to hear. Now, of course, we're gonna big picture this thing for sure. But is there anything that stood out for you in last night's Game 6? I watched it, Alan, and after 40 minutes, I tweeted that it was actually tough to really watch Dallas, and I used the term "stuck in the mud." It's like watching those monster trucks spinning and not getting anywhere. And we just knew that they didn't have another drop to piss, to be quite frank. They didn't. There was nothing left. There was absolutely nothing left. Now, we can talk about compelling TV all you want, but as far as the on-ice product, man, it ran its course. There was nothing there for a Game 7.
No, that was the worst championship clinching game I've ever seen in my life. And I blame it on the Dallas Stars. They were playing laptop hockey. They should have thrown all the iPads off the bench and just started firing the puck. I don't care, from your own blue line, from the red line, and just chase down rebounds, force faceoffs inside the offensive zone. But they played around the perimeter. They refused to shoot the puck. I think by the end of the game, their forwards as a group, all 12 forwards, and a few of them, 4 or 5 of them, didn't even have a shot, if I'm correct. I'll say 4. And they only had 12 shots total. I look at that. There's no way. You got to put the puck in the goaltender's feet. Tampa was doing it. You skate down the middle of the ice, you might as well shoot the puck. The goalie's not going to stop it every time. And then, all the pundits can tear the goalie apart for letting in a bad goal, which it seems every goal is a bad goal. But, I think it needed to be over. That was so painful to watch last night. It took forever. Didn't really have a rooting interest in either team. I just wanted the Game 7. And you could see early that with
We don't-
Dallas tactics, there's no way that was happening.
Alan, we couldn't take another game 7 like game 6. So I'm forever thankful that that didn't need to get extended. When you talk about Rick Bowness, the one thing that he made abundantly clear in game 5 is in that first overtime, we played not to lose. We waited, and somehow, some way, he convinced them otherwise in the double overtime, but he couldn't do it in game 6. That game 6 looked everything it completely like the first overtime in game 5. He couldn't talk them out of not sitting back, Alan. The chip and chase, or the dump out, and not being able to get your second forechecker in to create any type of havoc. It was painful, man.
Well, I would say that, you have to give Tampa credit for what they put out there. John Cooper and his staff had probably the best 5-man forecheck I've ever seen. Not a 2-man, not a 3-man, a 1-man. It was 5 men. The way the D were sealing off the walls, Dallas kept wrapping the puck around the wall, and it showed one of the deficiencies they do have in their lineup, and they needed right-handed defensemen out there. Klingberg was the only guy. So many times the pucks were put on the backhand, sloppy pucks around the wall, and Tampa would just throw it right back down, make the defensive coverage move around. They go corner to corner, point to point, up and down, and they had their way, and they just tired out Dallas. And when you're on your heels and you're having to play in your defensive zone the entire time, that's the hardest way to play. It's so tiring. It's exhausting to be a defender all game long. But on the other side of it, when they did get out of the zone, I just felt like any puck at any speed, high, low, bouncing that you could have put towards Vasilevsky would have helped. The power play opportunities that create from net front chaos, battles around the net, they could put you on the power play. But then again, they wouldn't shoot the puck on the power play. I couldn't figure that one out either. Sometimes, when the smart guy hockey doesn't work, go to the lunch pail hockey and see what you can get out of it. And what did they play when they won that double overtime? They started to play lunch pail hockey. So to me, it was a few different things. But Tampa definitely, Columbus brought them into the fight in the playoffs early. And after that, they became a force to reckon with. The physicality and the speed that they played the game with, the team toughness, the quality of goaltending, their defenders, no matter who they used on the back end. Look at all the right-handed and left-handed guys they were throwing in and out of the lineup. And they did a masterful job with a lot of throwaway players and acquired players as well, the guys through trade. They did an excellent job of putting together a beefier hockey team with a lot of offensive production and just flat-out snipers, guys that could do incredible things with the puck.
You watched that first goal by Brayden Point there, and it was like watching a hot knife through butter, and how easy he was able to get through. I think Sekera I don't know what he was doing or thinking, but it looked like he was playing shinny in a regular normal July skate for the first time before the season, and a horrible rebound as well by Hudobin. And you also watch, Alan, what I noticed is, when Point scored, I knew that it would cause all types of talk again on can Point win the Conn Smythe? Can he actually take it away from Hedman? And Hedman wasn't very good in game 5, and I think Cooper talked a lot about not being able to box out, and for his biggest mistake I saw in 2 months was the fact that he left Corey Perry so alone on the game 5 winner. And then even last night, he didn't look good. Everything was pointing to the direction that, as far as Tampa was concerned, as dominant as they've been, they were running out of gas too.
Well, it's been a long time. Look how long they've been in lockdown. They've been in prison. I guess the good thing is they got to hop on a plane at one point and go from one state penitentiary to the other, going from Toronto to Edmonton. You look at, though, it's not as physical as a playoffs as we've seen in the past, because as you mentioned earlier, you didn't have to do with all the travel all over North America. But on the other side of it, mentally, this had to be the toughest cup ever because it took so long. You're locked in a hotel room. It's not like they had the presidential suite for every player, and you get into a routine. It's almost like an extended training camp. And, we were when you and I played, we had a training camp in Lake Placid, and that little town still felt like a prison. So I couldn't imagine what these guys were going through as far as, going the distance. But when you go talk about the Conn Smythe, every year when you pick a winner at this, there's 2 or 3 guys. So easily I have Hedman in there. And, when he's dominant, he's the most dominant. But Brayden Point, to me, start to finish in the playoffs, is just so scary. He is one of the scariest players in the National Hockey League when he has the puck on a stick. Kucherov is an honorable mention, but there were too many nights where he was, not the same. It was all about Point driving, the bus of that team and getting their success energy to where it needed to be. And then I look at Vasilevsky, his team. They gave him some opportunities to shine, like big mistakes, opportunities where he was sealing off the bottom of the net. Even think of the one kick save last night that ended up being a penalty on Corey Perry. He just kept pulling them out. And so I look at all of these guys. So, the year the Caps won it, Ovi could have won it. Holtby could have won it. Kuznetsov could have easily won it. Eventually goes to Holtby, to Ovi, and for great reason. He put the team on his back. But it was Evgeny Kuznetsov's play that was highlight reel the entire time. So I look now, Victor Hedman's very deserving of it. There was a lot of guys, and maybe, for the amount of ice time that Steve Stamkos got, he could have easily had it, because that's the best 2 minutes and 47 seconds of hockey that we've ever seen. And you look at they had a great team, top to bottom. The role players rolled, the star players were stars. The goaltender was a brick wall when he needed to be. So, team success. You don't win it all by yourself.
I'm Nick Kypreos. He's Alan May from NBC Washington. We are live streaming here. We've got the Stanley Cup champions declared as the Tampa Bay Lightning. We're talking Conn Smythe. Thanks for joining us. Keep the comments coming. Do a ratings and review if you can on the Apple podcast. Alan, when we look at defensemen winning the Conn Smythe, I had the pleasure of being in the company of Brian Leetch, who did it in 1994. He ended up with 11 goals in that run. We know the record belongs to Paul Coffey, but then there was Hedman at 10. When I look at it, and I don't want to take anything away from Point, and I agree with you, one of the smartest hockey players that we'll ever come across presently, and he's as sharp as they come, and he can play a 200-foot game. I think there was one instance where there was a 2-on-1, and he ended up being the one guy back off a Dickinson chance last night. This guy plays it from one end to the other. But I find it quite remarkable that Hedman was only the 10th since 1969 to win a Conn Smythe. And I look at the position in itself, and again, not to take anything away from Brayden Point, but the position that can truly drive the pace of play and the guy that can really dictate most is your number one defenseman. And Hedman did that. And I thought he played his 2 worst games that I've seen in 2 months in Game 5 and Game 6. He wasn't very good, but that doesn't take away the fact that he dominated since August 1st. I got to think that in the future, we're going to see defensemen win this thing a lot more than once every 5 years.
I don't think so. Look at Hedman, the frequency that he scored with, and he was phenomenal. The nights that he was on, and remember, he came into the bubble late. I don't know if he was sick or if he was injured, and he definitely was banged up a few times in this series. And I know that
he turned his ankle. Do you remember that? We were questioning whether or not he'd be ready to go or if he was going to play at all.
Well, think of it. It's harder for a big guy to truck around the ice in the first place, and then you take a lower body injury, or any injury, for mobility and agility. But he used a size and a strength, and he's a completely different player than he's been in the past. I'm not going to say that he was soft in the past, but he played the game with more snarl now, and that was maybe because that coaching staff had convinced this team to make sure that they played the game that way, to play the game more aggressively. And you look at all of the players that they added. Pat Maroon, everyone goes, look how slow he is. Well, you know what? He's a big body out there that he does get the pucks. He does protect the puck. He gets to the front of the net. And then you look at the feistiness of Blake Coleman, what he brought to that team. Always in your face. Yanni Gourde, Paquette. Barclay Goodrow, what a phenomenal pickup he was for a first-round draft pick. So, they did give that away, but they won a Stanley Cup. So that first-round draft pick means nothing to me if you win. I just think, the play of Eric Chernak, Shen when he's in the lineup, Bogosian when he's in the lineup. Bogosian had a few monster hits last night, but the entire team was getting after it. Alex Killorn, physical every shift. We'll talk about a power forward that you want on your second or third line. So you have all of those ingredients, and Hedman added to that as well. The tallest player on the ice every single game that they played, and he played the game physically. He was involved in the scrums, pushing and shoving, finishing his hits, giving the extra cross-check. So he did elevate his game. So where he may have faltered in agility and mobility at nights because of the injury, he made up for in a physical presence, and that's something that we have never, ever said about Hedman in the past.
So, and by the way, only Doug McLean's allowed to disagree with me. Not an ex-teammate. I'm shocked right now, but all kidding aside. So we are in agreement that mentally the toughest Stanley Cup to win, but physically, no, I'm not buying it. A team that didn't need a game 7, a team that won 2 series 4-1, and a Stanley Cup final where their opponents was hard pressed to get 4 shots on goal a period. Physically, it was nowhere near the challenge that they obviously had mentally.
We're going to have to hear from the players on that, because you think of it, how weird is it to get ready for a season when you don't know whether you're going to play? We both went through the first lockout. We went through a strike, and then we went through the first lockout back in 94, 95, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And, how many times did you get your motor, tip-top shape, and then all of a sudden, it's not happening. They're postponing the season. Then you'd kind of lose it and get depressed and go into a funk. It's the same thing for these players. You're getting ready to get into that playoff grind down the end of March and through April, and that for the second week of April, the playoffs start, and you're at it all year long. You do have nagging injuries, and then you come out of this. Some players never got their motor running on a lot of the teams that are out of the playoffs. They didn't get, they didn't get their game shape. So I know what you're saying physically, I know, Alan, the hits and the hits and everything.
But you also, and again, Cooper talked about it. What's the difference between you and everybody else is our disappointments that we use to fuel our fire. So mentally, they were in a better place. Tampa was in a way better place, and it was based on their lack of success the last 5, 6, 7 years. So they had that edge mentally. As far as the physical aspect of it, I get, and I think Barclay Goodrow tweeted about it, just about, taking the hits every night. That's a given. That is a given during the Stanley Cup Finals, that you are going to get pushed physically, that everyone's finishing their checks. So that in itself will always be there. But I also saw lulls of energy. And again, the circumstances were the reason why. But you never saw the lack of energy in pockets like we saw, particularly in this.
I think we talked about that last time I was on. And the big thing is you lack energy because there's no fans in the building. So you have to play the game from within. Mentally, it's tougher to motivate. And, the reporters, people that never played the game at the highest levels, they might have played in bantam and midget and peewee, whatever, but it's hard to play inside an empty building. So I think a lot of times, we talked about this, is your fans can sustain you, or the other crowd can shut you down. And could you imagine that first period forecheck last night? That game would have been played in Dallas. So, it wouldn't have been as deafening, and it wouldn't have been, as momentum grabbing. Maybe the fans would have got shut out, but a little here and there, some big hits by, say, a Ben or, whoever was trying to throw hits on Dallas. And then, but you look at in Tampa, the Thunderdome where they play is so incredibly loud. Had that game been in Tampa last night, there's no way that Dallas would have just lost the way they did. It might have been an 8-goal spread, 10-goal spread, because you know what, you get that on your back. So you had to sustain, you had to play within yourself. So the Lightning coaches did a great job at keeping their players going. But there were pockets. But you know what? Were those pockets from the fact that we didn't have real fans in the building? We just had, the simulated crowd noise and, the EAS backdrop. So no matter what, to me, this is
Yeah.
going to be the cup we'll always remember. Oh, it'd be the second one you remember. But for it was for the players to agree to this, to everyone to come together and put the game, and even the players put the owners ahead on this to get the TV rights money and all of that, and that you're thinking about themselves as well. And next year, whenever that is, how much money they'll be making off of their contracts, from the
Yeah.
face value as to what they actually take home. So, it's tough circumstances all the way around. I just said it was a white collar privilege or prison, white collar prison a few weeks back. And, it just, they got to roam free, but still they weren't allowed to go out and do anything. They weren't allowed to take a breath of fresh air. And, kudos to everyone involved, but it had to be hardest on the players. Can you imagine being a coach? How do you get rid of your nervous energy when you're sitting in front of a laptop every second between games? So, you know what? They're going to be so thankful to get out of their Tampa Bay, to get back to the beaches in Florida, their friends and family, and get to live a normal life again, and cherish this. And once again, when do we start? So there's just so many things involved, and we can pick at it for days about whether it is. But we're going to get the injury count soon. I'm dying to find out what Stamkos' real injury is, or injuries.
Alan, he had abdominal surgery. It was a hernia. So, you've pulled your abdominal muscles. I talked about this a week and a half ago. I did it. It shut me down the rest of the season. I chose not to have surgery, but I gave it enough time to heal. The unfortunate part for Stamkos is I don't think it ever healed, and he's now 6.5, 7 months. So
all of everyone wanted to get back in, and think of how tough for the coaching staff that is. So it's not just another player; it's your leading goal scorer, the guy that scored the most goals, I think, behind Ovi, maybe, since he's gotten into the league. He and Phil Kessel are right up there. And, the captain of your team, who's done a lot of incredible things there, and he doesn't, he's pushing to get back, fighting, and probably trying to do too much. So, I commend him for doing that. And what a tough decision for Cooper and those guys. And it had to be, a pretty big deal for Stamkos to tell them and actually be honest with them and say, I can't go. I'm done. I'm shot. And at least you got some clicks in the finals. He got to score a goal that was incredibly important for his team. So, I just I wish as soon as this is over, within a week, they would just say broken finger, separated shoulder, broken ribs, torn rib cartilage, torn abdominals. I love all of that stuff. And,
I know, Alan, but you also know that some will milk it a little bit more than they should, as if it kind of justifies if they didn't play as well as they were told that they should have. I mean, it does come with a bit of a grain of salt.
Yeah, some do and some don't, but it's still, there's a lot of times I've seen after playoff series, and the media and fans just rip players apart. And the guy, we played with Scotty Stevens years ago, who had a severely separated shoulder the entire playoffs, and we didn't even know. His teammates. And, we went 3 rounds, and he was our most dominant physical presence every single night and played the game like a warrior. And, he wasn't taking painkillers. He wasn't taking Toradol. He wasn't doing all those things. He was just popping a few Advils, gritting his teeth, and throwing some tape on it before we got there.
We'll never question whether or not that guy needs to milk any injury. Not that guy, for sure. But we watched and not know for sure what it was going to be like. And I remember having conversations prior to even getting into this bubble on what would it be like to watch a Stanley Cup being presented in an empty building, in an empty stadium. What do? There's just no crowd acknowledgement, no energy, no nothing. And last night we kind of found out. Now, you can say whatever you want about what you saw last night, and we know we live, Alan, in a world of reality television, and that's been well documented the last 15, 20 years, and made for TV. Hockey was never about being made for TV. It was often talked about as the worst sport for television. Baseball's better, football's better, slower, can break down longer, and then get charged up for another big play. But hockey, with the ebbs and flows of it, you just never know. But it was pretty good TV last night, and it's not exactly the Bachelor, with a rose being presented at the end of the night, but it was the Stanley Cup by Gary Bettman. I thought it played out a lot better than I imagined last night, watching the raw emotion that Dallas showed.
Hey,
Or I'm
first day
sorry,
out of
the Tampa Bay showed.
well, hey, the first day out of prison, they were looking forward to it. This was the night before. They finally get that. I'd take that cup over any damn rose any day.
Yeah.
But you look at, the presentation. Tampa thought about it, how they handed it out. I thought that was spectacular, how they did the team handout. In 5 years, when we look back, even a year, when they show the video, the road to the cup, it's going to be spectacular how they were able to pull this off. And there's so many things behind the scenes that led to this. Alternate dressing rooms and everything that went into it. Being around the other team in the same hotel every day, bumping into them. Whether they were still going up to the pool or whatever they were doing, just so different. But last night, the camera trickery, they were able to pull it off. It's a lot like those protests here in DC. There could be 10 people that make it look like 100,000. But, I really liked enjoying what I saw last night. And we all know, we all wanted that thing our entire lives. And there's no way to look down upon it and say, man, I wish there would have been. You just got to take it for what it was. You found a way to fight back. Over 30,000 tests inside the two bubbles without a positive. And I think that's incredible. It says a lot about what the teams and the players, everyone involved, the discipline that they showed and the thought that went into all of this to pull it off. So, incredibly tough cup to win. I was happy to see the celebrations. I wish I would have got to see the players with their families, their best friends out there. And there was certainly a lot of Tampa Bay Lightning staff on the ice. I didn't realize they traveled with that big of a staff. So I guess that was all 51 of their people.
Yeah.
But it was absolutely spectacular to be able to see that. And I guess the one thing is they're probably going to have the best Stanley Cup party when they do get back. I'm sure that their owner has planned something special for all their friends and family in an incredible environment back in Tampa. But
wow,
that'll be a lot different than a lot of nights after the cup. You have those rooms in your hotel and you get there, but everyone's already bouncing all over the place. The players are already half in the bag from all the drinking in the dressing room by the time they get there. So the next one I think is going to be pretty cool, and that'll be hopefully there's a lot of cameras there to show the events that went on when everyone finally got to get everyone together.
Vinnick will do it right because he always does. Just hear so many great things about him as an owner, and that's what you really want is that support. And that'll be great for the guys. But I found it so strange and kind of how ironic it was that here these guys for 2 months have done everything absolutely the letter of the law, whether it's the NHL, the PA, the players, the doctors, the lawyers, government. And then above the celebration was what I think was a live shot of the celebration outside of Tampa Bay's arena, where there was thousands upon thousands on top of each other partying and celebrating. And I'm like, what do we just do for 2 months? And then there they are. But I don't know. Maybe it's the Florida thing, but kind of found that a little strange.
Well, people in North America are living their lives in different ways. And, I spend the summer in Minnesota at a lake, and, everyone respectfully did everything they had. And, we haven't had a surge there in the part that I was in. People in Florida, Texas, Arizona, there's been pockets of it here and there. It comes and goes. So I just don't know what to believe anymore with the media as far as, comes to any of this. But, the people in Tampa, it's just, they had fun. Everyone's been locked up. They got to support their team. They're rabid. We'll see what the effects of it are in 2 weeks if there is a surge there. I'm sure there will be in some parts of the media. Other parts of the media there won't be. So you know what? I don't really care about it. I'm just happy everyone got to celebrate.
We watched Tampa Bay and just that raw emotion, but we also got a lot of it out of the Dallas Stars and the look of going this far and not having anything to show for it. Let's face it, there's one Stanley Cup winner and there's 30 losers. And at the end of the day, you're one of 30 that didn't win the Stanley Cup. And I think that really showed. Did you see Jamie Benn on the podium, who could not answer a single question, who just sat in silence. Someone clocked it, I think it's 16 seconds. Like, if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know on the agony of defeat, I don't know what does.
Well, I kind of miss all those emotions of, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. And, I just think of back, if there were fans in the buildings, like all of the experiences combined with going through as many rounds. Technically, they went through 5 rounds of playoffs and or whatever you want to call it. And they did all this, and there was no fans in the building. Can you imagine going through that same environment like you did and have that energy from the people in all of the different buildings around, North America as you guys were going on to win your Stanley Cup? So, it had to be an incredibly empty feeling. And once again, you're putting so much more into these games mentally. It's not like you don't when you're playing in front of fans, but there's a lot more that you have to do in these games. Some nights you don't even have to think about the fans that get you to the next level. On these, you talked about those pockets of dullness and the lulls.
Yeah.
Really, you really have to drive and push yourself a lot more. So kind of like starting your workouts as you get to be an older player in the league, every summer, you take whatever it is, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month off, and then you get back at it. You don't feel so great. The first time you get back on the ice, it's like you never skated before. So I just think there's got to be an incredibly empty feeling to those guys. Are probably just getting on their plane right now to fly back to Dallas. And it had to be bring you a closeness, a tightness together as a team, even though you lost, better than ever before, because there was more time spent. There was no going home to your girlfriend, your wife, or your dog. And it's just different. So I look at Jamie Benn, very surprised with the playoffs that he had. I'd say 90% of the time he was good to go. Played with a lot of heart, played with the type of play that you want to see out of him, through an 82 game season and then through a big playoff run. So it had to be so emotionally devastating for all of the Dallas Stars. But then again, it is when you lose the cup. But I think in this circumstance, there are just so many reasons you could have quit and you had to keep going, and wonder if it's all worth it with the sacrifice. But, once again, I'm happy the players all came together and agreed to do this with the teams. And to me, I don't know what we would have done if we'd have been still locked down and didn't have hockey to watch since August.
Not just the Dallas Stars and the Tampa Bay Lightning heading home, but members of the National Hockey League, Gary Bettman, i.e. Bill Daly, Matthew Schneider from the National Hockey League Players Association, Donald Fehr, they're heading home. My understanding is between them, they're going to give the rest of the week off, and then they're going to meet as early as next week. The Players Association putting together another panel. No time to rest, Alan. They're already getting into what they could possibly be looking at for next season. And the players are close to getting a committee done between 10 and 12 players. I think some of them might even be back for a second stint, possibly Connor McDavid, Tavares, some of those guys, Hainsey. And Alan, I think we're all in agreement that this was a one-off, man. You could never pull this off again, and there's not going to be one player, even if he knew for sure that he was going to win the Stanley Cup, that I would think would want to go through anything like this ever again. But you got to start thinking about what something could look like as early as December or January, because those are the dates that they want, and they're still going to stick to it unless somebody tells them otherwise, i.e. governments and borders.
Well, there will be no hockey in December. There may be training camps. I think it's 45 days from the presentation of the cup that you could have training camp, but you're not going to have hockey until January, 100% in my opinion. I would bet all of my money on that. I would make a huge bet that hockey doesn't come back till January. DC, for example, the arena is actually located in the heart of Washington, the capital of the United States, and the mayor here is not allowing any public gatherings. The teams aren't going to play without fans. It's 50 to 60% of the revenue for every team is ticket sales, ticket revenue. And then you take with that with your advertising in the buildings. They're not going to play in a bubble. They're not going to play in empty buildings anymore with just 50 people. In DC, you can only have 50 people in a gathering. So I don't know if that would be 50 employees in that entire building. And you can't pull that off. So you look at it. So there's different jurisdictions around the country. I'm sure in Seattle, they wouldn't let them play. Does Seattle want to play their first game in an empty barn? I don't think so. So you want to find a way, and it's going to be January or February. The next few months, the cold weather months, will tell us more about what's going on here. There's a huge election in the United States, in case you haven't noticed. But there are so many things. So the player, I think the committee probably won't get together till, I would say, after October 15th, because we have the draft this weekend. We have free agency over the course of the week after that. So everyone needs to decompress a little bit before they get back to that. But they've got a lot of things in place, a lot of different looks. And I just don't think it's January, February. The players are going to be playing, if they play in front of an empty building, every team is allowed to play in their building in front of no fans. You're playing it for 25% of the stated value on your contract, with the rough math that I'm using. And I don't think anyone wants to do that. The owners will lose money. And they put a lot on the line here. They're saying the estimates are $75 million from the owners' pockets, not the players' pockets, from putting this all together. The NBA sounds like considerably more. I don't know how, but anyways, it is the way it is right now. And I just honestly believe that no matter what the players decide, they're not playing the game unless there's fans in the building. And is it 50% of the building? Is it 100%? So there's a lot of ifs and buts. I can't imagine Los Angeles County with what's going on, San Jose being able to, with the governor of California, letting anyone play in these massive arenas and letting 10, 15, 20,000 people, in there to view the games. The league does need ticket sales, and it's going to be a very different time. So don't be surprised if we don't even see hockey for the 2021.
Yeah. Let's bring in Jordan and Joe. Joe, are you out there as well? Joe Holka.
I'm here.
Holka show.
I'm here. Yep.
Do we now look at the NHL or the Players Association watching the NFL very closely? Because I think in a best case scenario, they would like to create something where teams are traveling to respective cities and be in a position to play. I don't think we'll ever see the players commit to anything longer than that they would deem, Alan, a Western road swing, a typical Western road swing. And for us as players, Alan, what would that be? 10 to 14 days at the most? I think that's all they'd be willing to give up here moving forward. But there's no way they're going to do a month, let alone two.
They won't be doing a bubble. And I don't think they'll, the original at the start of this, they talked about divisional bubbles.
Yeah.
Like the Metro bubble, the Atlantic bubble, and switching around of teams. I just can't see it. Why bother? The big thing is you have to get people in the buildings and to play in empty buildings. Maybe they do it for 1 month before they start to let people in, hopefully build up for, say, the playoffs where the buildings are close to max occupancy. They'll look at everything. They looked at everything in this consideration, but I just can't see the player, even the owners, they don't want to do it. The players don't want to miss out on money, but at the same time, the league has in their contracts, I think it's called force majeure, where, this pandemic qualifies as that, and what they can do about it as far as canceling the season or cutting into the players' pay. And I don't know all the specifics on it, but I'm sure that the players don't want to play for fractions and play that many games for fractions of what they normally get paid.
Joe, what do you see out of the NFL with their limited number of fans in the stadium and their challenges? And could the NHL be watching this very closely?
Yeah, Kyper, I think you said it, right? It's just such a different situation overall. Like, we knew that, even you rope the NBA into this, that it was going to be kind of a sprint through these playoffs, and then we'll kind of reassess from there. I think the NFL, they're in a tough spot, like similar to baseball starting out their season. Like, you can't, like Alan was just saying, you can't just expect these guys to be away from their families for 7-8 months at a time. I've heard people talk about maybe you could have done a bubble and then there would have been like a couple more bye weeks to kind of stretch things out a little bit. Maybe you cut the season down so that they are able to leave the bubble, quarantine, come back. There's no probably right answer here, Kyper. But I do think that it's been odd, to say the least, that it basically is team by team right now in the NFL, how many people are allowed in the building, if anyone's allowed in the building. Like, I live right outside of US Bank Stadium in Minnesota, and there's no fans in the building there right now. There's no cheerleaders, there's no nothing. So it's it's different at every team right now. So I think that from a player's perspective, they probably just want a little bit more continuity there. But there's no right answer.
I also think that it's very hard to compare the NHL to the NFL, or in that fact, anyone to the NFL, right? Like, they make so much money per second on television. They control a day. And I also think that the length of the season plays a factor as well, right? So I wonder, and this is a question I have for you, Alan, and you, Kyper, and everybody else in chat or on podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and rating and reviews. But basically, we have this thing where is the canceling of the season, is that better? Is using the force majeure better than people making 25%? Because I wonder if it's worse to start and stop than it is to go with something a little bit more conservative in nature. And I don't mean in the terms of politically speaking conservative, but just a smaller scope plan that isn't as grand, and then you have the ability to walk it back easier.
Yeah.
I don't really know. Just like what Joe said, there is no right answer.
Well, Gary Bettman talked that their goal is to get in all 82 games next season, and I just don't know how that's ever going to happen. Let's also keep in mind, guys, that we are going into NBC with the Olympics. They're still on their last year of their NHL rights contract, but there isn't a sense that the players are going to be able to cram 82 games between, I guess, January and Alan. They're going to want their summers back, man. They gave it up already this time around, and they're not going to want to give up July. My understanding is what the Olympics start second, third week in July. So they're going to have to find a way to get a number of games in before that.
Well, to me, the biggest thing is I would not be surprised once again to see no season. And with all of things going on, there's talk of vaccines and everything. There's so many unknowns. So maybe you go to training camp in December, but if there's an uptick across the country and COVID and all the different things that are going to go, or the two countries, you have to have people in the building. The NHL cannot sustain. It's of all the four major leagues, it's the league that requires tickets being sold, people in the building to make money.
Yeah.
And the TV contracts alone aren't going to be there. If ratings are down throughout all of sports right now, television ratings, so is the revenue. So you take a look at that. And once again, the players start going into an area of how many games are you going to play? And all of a sudden, are you playing for 10, 15, 20, 25% of the face value of your contract? You're almost better off not playing and pushing every contract forward.
Well,
1 year.
The players are going to fight tooth and nail to get whatever they can out of their contracts.
Well, you can't blame. It's a short career. You have to make what you can make. Not everyone gets to play 15, 20 years. And, no matter what you make, it's a great salary. But you do have to look out for your best interest financially. And, one of the best things might to defer your contract a year and get paid in full the next time you get back at it. And then, it's going to be tough for guys who are UFAs right now. They'll go a while without, being paid. But, everything's is subject to change. So right now, today's really the first day I thought there probably won't be a season. And I hope I'm not right in that.
Yeah. But
with all of the different things going on out there, all the misinformation, disinformation that we have in the media now, political parties using stats to go their own way, it's a tough time to know what's right and what's wrong.
I'm really hoping that this quote unquote second wave peaks in another 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and we could use November and December to start getting the numbers back down. The other thing too is, let's not forget, in the NFL, we're only talking about one game a week. So there's plenty of time to go and travel. There's plenty of time to prep. There's a lot of buildup in the media, and certainly you don't get that same luxury in the NBA or the NHL. But the NBA is closing in.
Hey, Kyper, wanted to announce to everybody that we have two teams actually shutting down their facilities today in the NFL, and probably some more news to follow throughout the day. Adam Schefter is reporting, and Dan Graziano. The Vikings won't be back in their facility until all of their test results are in. The other team that has closed down their facilities is the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
They might have to forfeit this week. As Joe mentioned, he lives right next to US Bank Stadium. It's tough. Overall, I don't know if this is going to cause more tests, more contact tracing, or anything along those lines. But I guess on the positive aspect of things, some ideas in chat were bouncing around. Let's try to brainstorm ways that you could make it work in a positive environment. What about outdoor rinks? How many games a season could that be possible for? You know, is it a tournament-like environment that you could do at these big baseball stadiums? I mean, personally speaking, I remember when they started doing the Winter Classic, I loved watching it, even as not a massive diehard hockey person. So what are some one positive idea each to make it work this season?
Yeah. Outdoor rinks, that'll never happen, Jordan, and it is a major production. It takes the whole office of Gary Bettman in New York to produce one. I don't know how you could pull off half a dozen at the same time, not to mention the costs in compressors and man labor that you have to put in. You go to those outdoor weekends and there's staff that's 24/7 the last 3 or 4 days, right, Alan? It's around the clock to keep the ice where it needs to be to hold a standard for the best hockey players in the world. It's just too expensive, Jordan.
I think as time goes by, I think testing in every arena, temperature checks, 15-minute COVID tests, just for the employees early in the day to get people in the buildings. And then you're going to have to do with the players, all the team staff going into the buildings. And they're going to have to do temperature checks, face masks. I think the next time we do have, teams in buildings, everyone will have a mask. And probably for the entire season until, if vaccines are going to work and everything. So I think it's going to be all about, being able to have the ability to test everyone, not just temperature wise. I know my health club, I walk up to it and there's an iPad looking face scanner and it pumps out your temperature right there. So on your security checks going into buildings, you're going to have people getting to buildings a lot sooner, to the facilities a lot sooner as far as the fans are concerned, because I know in DC, there are certain nights that people have trouble getting into the buildings. There's dogs outside the building, bomb sniffing dogs and things like that. So I don't know if that means there was a possible threat. And then you take that and add temperature checks and everything that goes with it. So the biggest thing is going to be finding a way to get everyone checked going into the buildings when they finally do open up. And then how are they going to adhere to everything with, how close everyone is, the particles. It's going to be face mask hockey. It's not just going to be the players wearing a mask. It'll be the fans as well, every single game the next season.
While we're on the topic of business 101 in the National Hockey League, Alan, we saw Bobby Ryan get bought out a couple of days ago on waivers. It's kind of been quiet the last little while. You expect to see a lot of buyouts? You expect it to be quiet this week? There is another opportunity through arbitration that teams will have on a buyout scenario. The big one is Lundqvist. We all assume he's going to get bought out. We're just not sure if it's going to be this week or down the road when they get a second opportunity to buy him out.
Well, maybe they have to trade a pick to get someone to take half of his salary. I think that's all you can do on a trade is take 50% of a player's salary. And a team out there, I would take my chances with Henrik Lundqvist. He wouldn't be he'd be 40 games max. And if he's the better of the two goalies going into the playoffs, I'd play him. But if you could get him for half price for one season, I think that would be, in the best interest of the New York Rangers to eat that. I'm not sure where his buyout numbers are, how long it would last. I'm not well versed in all the different buyout scenarios. Yeah. But if I'm a team, the Toronto Maple Leafs, I'm not sure where they're at financially in net. But a guy like Henrik Lundqvist as your other guy, because it seems like Toronto, it's the only place in the National Hockey League where it's life and death as to who your backup goaltender is. But he'd be spectacular to have in your rotation. And if you're the Vancouver Canucks and they lose Markstrom or trade one of the two goalies that they have, wouldn't he be a great guy to bring in for half his contract value? I just look at him. He's still effective to me. He seems like he's 6'4", 6'5". He's not that big. He plays huge. You put him on a team that thinks defense first, I could imagine how great he would look with the New York Islanders. Absolutely phenomenal. But to me, he's worth taking a chance. I don't think I would buy him out. And as far as Bobby Ryan's concerned, I still think he's got a lot of good hockey in him. I can't believe that he played in Ottawa and Anaheim as long as he did. He's had a long career.
I don't get it. I don't get it. And yeah, there might be a few dollars here and there, but he's got guaranteed signing bonus money. The buyout's not anything crazy.
He's actually got a great buyout, the way it's structured because of the signing bonus money. But
yeah,
if I'm the Philadelphia Flyers,
they wanted him out. I don't get it.
Yeah.
When I'm watching, and I know he's got some challenges off the ice, but when I watch Pavelski still do what he can do, Bobby Ryan for another year, and you got to get the floor up if you're Eugene Melnick. You got to hit the bottom.
I think he's a Philadelphia kid. I think he was raised in Cherry Hill for a while as a kid. To me, there's a team that doesn't have goal scoring on the right side. They don't have enough of it. Why not take a chance on Bobby Ryan? Different looks on your power play. You sign him to a 1-year deal. You put a healthy bonus structure in it. He can help. So regardless of what Ottawa wants to go younger, unless you're the mentor type of player, like say a Ron Hainsey has done an incredible job. I thought his career was going to be over 8 years ago, and he's found a way to be a positive influence everywhere he's gone. And, a guy like that. So you have your older mentors. I know how important it was to have Brooks Orpik with the Washington Capitals, and how I really thought they missed that part of their team this past season. The guy that kept people accountable in the room, and it shouldn't just all be on your captain at all times. You respect those older players like a Gary Roberts, guys that do everything with a knife and fork and the barbells as well. But I think Bobby Ryan, you've never heard of him being a mentor around the National Hockey League. I don't know enough about him inside the confines of the dressing room. But to me, if I'm the Philadelphia Flyers, it's an easy choice for me to grab a guy like that. And I know that Minnesota's shipping out a lot of older players. It's not like Bobby's that old. There's another guy that's a goal scorer. When you think of Minnesota, do they have snipe? They don't have snipe ability on their team. And you need to add that. Guys that are comfortable having the puck on their stick. And to me, Bobby Ryan would be worth it for almost half the teams in the league to take an opportunity, take a chance on this guy. He signs a 1-year deal, comes in, he commits to a longer offseason like he has been. It seems like he's doing all the right things in his personal life, that he could be at a stage right now where he's in the best shape that he's ever going to be in, and could come out guns a-blazing and get you a lot of great offense right off the bat to make sure your team's got a confidence in it as you go forward every month and try to make the playoffs.
How about the 2018 Stanley Cup champion Washington Capitals, a team that you follow very closely? Buyouts in play here. They got to sign Ovechkin.
Well, Ovechkin they don't have to worry about until next year, right?
Well, yeah, that's true. They don't have to worry about that year on the deal, but
and it'll come around. We'll see where it's at. But at the same time, you look at that. If there's a buyout, I'll be surprised here. It's going to be dollar for dollar trades around the National Hockey League. A lot of teams, when you look at their rosters, they're nothing but unrestricted free agents. Buffalo and Detroit. Look how many guys that don't have contracts that are UFA contract. Tampa Bay, they have all of their defensemen are UFAs. You think of the guys that won't be there. Shattenkirk's got an expiring deal. Bogosian's got an expiring deal.
Yeah,
I think
they're all done.
Shen.
They're all done. They're going to move in. They're cheap talent, and they're still going to have some issues here when it comes to defending next year. And they've got restricted free agents, Alan, that could be in play on offer sheets if they go beyond what they're capable of signing. I look at Anthony Cirelli, and depending how deep you want to go and what you really think of him, Alan, and whether or you ever think that he can get to a number 2 centerman, but he's going to be regarded as now the best third line centerman. But what would a team like the Montreal Canadiens be willing to pay for Anthony Cirelli on an offer sheet that could get Tampa to back off matching it?
Well, they're just wasting their time. And I think last year when Montreal did the offer sheet on Aho, I think that was Mark Bergevin and his friends Rick Dudley and Dodd Waddell, guys that had worked together before. I think that was kind of orchestrated to help get that deal done.
No, no
honestly,
way.
I do.
No way, because it made Bergevin look horrible. It made him look bad. All he needed to do was up it a little bit and front load it, and Carolina wouldn't have had the cash to do it.
Carolina has a billionaire owner who's worth not just one, but I think a couple $1 billion.
But he doesn't overpay, Alan.
It doesn't matter.
Overpay.
Hey, what he saw, he was in the building when they punked the Capitals 2 years ago in the playoffs, or a year ago, whenever it was, a lifetime ago. He saw how effective Sebastian Aho was, how incredible he was. And, his ego, there's no way that you could let that player escape. It was just, I think that was about facilitating and helping Carolina get the deal done with an owner who was getting in the way, and maybe taught him a lesson to stay out of the way. They are a fiscally responsible team, or fiscally conservative. But if you try to sign Cirelli, Tampa's matching it every single day of the week. So you're wasting your time.
You've got Kucherov at 9.5. You got Stamkos at 8.5. You got Point at 6.7. They've got to get rid of Palat, Tyler Johnson, Killorn. Those guys have no trade clauses as well. It's going to be tough for Julien BriseBois to figure this thing out, because I would go after Cirelli if I'm the Montreal Canadiens. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, he's not going to be available, in my opinion, and he's going to get a healthy contract. There's no state income tax in the state of Florida. You look at their defensemen; all their right-handers, pretty much. You have Jan Ruda, Luke Schenn, Kevin Shattenkirk, Zach Bogosian.
Chernak, they got to re-sign too. That guy could also be, if someone wants to spend $3, $4, $5 million on this guy, I don't think Tampa can match that, because they're so committed with Hedman,
it's definitely not going to happen. And they'll get him under contract. They're going to let all those other guys go. It's going
to be hard. It's going to be hard.
They're once again, they're going to bring in players on minimum wage, basically, to play in their bottom end. Yanni Ruta won't be back there unless he's back there for the NHL minimum, or something that they can bury in the minors and have on waivers all season. So that's usually, what is it? It's the league minimum plus half is what you can hide in the AHL. Shan players like that, they're 30. All these guys are 30 and above. So if I'm Las Vegas, and I actually look at the Dallas Stars, one of the things that killed them in these playoffs is they only had one right-handed defender. You look at all of the forechecking by Tampa, it was to force all the defensemen to their backhands to send those sloppy soft passes around the wall, and it was almost a turnover. It wasn't credited as a turnover one time, but it was a change of momentum by sending that slop out every time. Dallas needs right-handed defense. I look at Las Vegas. Zach Whitecloud is their one regular player that's a right-handed player. So if I'm Vegas, I go out there. Pietrangelo is at the top of my list. Shattenkirk would be on my list. Bogosian would be on my list.
They're on everybody's list.
Right-handed defenseman, but at the same time, no state income tax in Tennessee, Texas, Nevada. So you have to, players take that, and they can take less there and make a little bit more money, so that you can wheel and deal like that. When you're older, like those players, it's not like you have a lot of bargaining power. The one guy that does have a lot of bargaining power right now is Pietrangelo, and there's a couple teams very, very interested in him. But I think right now the shiny new thing is in Vegas, and what they can offer, and they got an incredible environment for the players to play in. An incredible, the suburb that their practice arena and facility is phenomenal. A low cost of living, a high quality of life, an owner that's spending cash like it doesn't matter. And so teams like that. So there will be movement around the National Hockey League, but I'm not big on all the buyouts that people are expecting. I just can't see it happening. And you think you got to carry that in a flat cap world. Do you want to be buying players out and having dead money on your hands? So it's a little bit different. In the past, you could count on that 3 to 5% bump. Right now, you can't do that. So the mathematicians are probably the busiest guys right now. The capologists within each team trying to figure out where they do with their money. But really, buying out players right now, to me, is a bad move if you're not near the top of it, near the bottom of the salary cap scale in the National Hockey League.
Okay, general manager, Alan May, what are you paying Sergachev next year?
Well, he's still young, and he's going to be on an RFA contract again. So you don't have to max him out. And maybe what you do with him is you get him to take a team-friendly deal for a shorter term so that when the cap does go up, so what do we have, 3 years of a flat cap going forward? And then when it does go up, I'm not sure how much it can, but he goes on a 3-year deal or so. And he's going to be, I would say he's in the $5 to $6 million range right now. He's a phenomenal hockey player. I can't believe
a lot of money, man.
I cannot believe that Montreal let him go. And it's the first time when you see him play in person, there's one thing to see the skating ability of players on television, but when you see them in person, like Brayden Point in person just blows you away. Evgeny Kuznetsov in person blows you away. There are so many defensemen in the National Hockey League that, you know, if you can see Heiskanen in person, you can't believe how well he moves around the ice. And everything is slower on television. When you see them in person doing all these things on their blades at high speed, at full speed, under duress, you look at him. And to me, Sergachev is one of those guys. His skating is mind-boggling out there. Like, he can use his reach. He glides faster than most guys can skate. He's very deceptive. You can't let him go anywhere unless you're throwing him to another team for a lot in return. And I can't see letting a guy go who's going to be the future Victor Hedman on that hockey team.
You know, Montreal Canadian fans were really enjoying the Real Kyper at Noon show until you brought up Sergachev used to be a Montreal Canadian.
Could you imagine him playing with Shea Weber? I'm a huge Shea Weber fan, but that pairing would be so dominant, and with what he's learned. So he has gotten better and better. I think there was a moment in his career, I believe it was last season, where he dropped the gloves and took someone down, and all of a sudden he completely changed who he was on the ice. He plays the game with a lot more snarl than he did before. I think it's important to play physically. And he's added the puck moving, you know, the fact that he was always on those power plays, moving the puck around. He's got a snipe of a shot. He can forehand, backhand, put the puck anywhere he wants on the ice. And he's only getting better and better. And they don't have to, a lot like those old Red Wings teams, they don't have to hurry him because they do have a lot of talent around that team where they're not expecting all of a sudden you to be an 80-point defenseman or a 50-goal scorer as a rookie and tear the league up. It's not that easy. It'd be a lot tougher for him to play in Toronto than it is in Tampa. Like everyone in the National Hockey League, it's so much easier to play in the U.S. markets than it is up north. But he doesn't have to be hurried right now. He's an absolutely phenomenal and terrific hockey player.
Who would you rather have on your team, Sergachev or Provorov?
I take Sergachev. I think there's a ceiling of Provorov.
Okay.
I love the way he plays, but really he's been in the league a few years. He's a good skater, not a great skater, but he played so very well with Matt Niskanen this year. But I take Sergachev.
My point in all of this is that Provorov's deal now is 6.75, 23 years of age. Sergachev just coming on that now, pretty comparable. That's where the new number would start for Sergachev, I think.
Not happening. Flat cap. No state income tax in the state of Florida, and I just think that there's going to be agents are going to have to be more creative in this situation. They're going to have to hedge their bets with the players on when the salary cap does go up. Otherwise, you just say, hey, do you want to play here? Or do you want to play somewhere else? It might have to go to that. It's so hard to win a back-to-back Stanley Cup. I just look at this, and Tampa's played a lot of playoff games the last 4 or 5 years, whatever it is, and it's going to be tough to replicate. They do have to make a lot of changes on their team, but at the same time, the players are going to have to understand, just like they did coming back to play, that there's have to be a little bit of sacrifice on your overall dollar amount. But that's where the team comes in. We'll go less years so you can hit the jackpot next time when the cap does go up.
Hey, Alan, you know what? We didn't hear one lawnmower. Didn't hear one sprinkler system. Didn't hear a leaf blower.
We're inside today. We're not outside in the park.
Hey, you stuck around for over an hour.
And my construction guys didn't blow out the power today. So we're all good. They're all out of the house.
Alan May, great job today. concluding what was a very eventful Stanley Cup playoffs, one that we will never forget. Thank you so much for being a part of it. For all of you watching, we're going to continue the rest of the week. We're going to bring back Doug MacLean. We still have to give away a Harley, Jordan, and my understanding is as late as going into puck drop on Game 6, we still had more ballots being brought in. So we're going to make sure all of those are accounted for and everything's on the up and up. And we'll give you ample notice when we're going to make that draw. Right, Jordan?
Absolutely. Our friends at blitzbet.eu, we've been in contact with them throughout the way. We talk to them every day when we decide who we're going to do for boosts and stuff like that. So they were getting bets right until puck drop, like Kipper mentioned. Probably going to be a day or two before we hear back from them. That's maybe a little bit of an optimistic outlook. Hoping by the end of the weekend we'll get an announcement going. But with an item like this, with a Harley, we want to make sure that the right person's getting it, that there was no foul play, nothing like that, so we could see somebody doing some very responsible driving whenever they receive it, right?
Oh, I can't wait to give it away. I'm just it's like I'm a game host show, right? It's just like I'm like Ellen and Oprah giving away gifts now. It's really cool. So I can't wait to do that. Like I said, we're going to be around the rest of the week. We'll figure out a more long-term look at what the Real Kyper show will mean throughout the off season, and we'll keep you abreast on that. And Alan, you've been a great regular contributor to the Real Kyper at Noon show. We're going to count on you maybe a little bit through the draft and unrestricted free agency coming up October 9th. Hope you're going to be around for that, Alan. But thanks so much again for your contribution.
Thanks a lot, Kipper. Good to see you. And if they have internet in the Maldives, you got me.
Alan May, NBC, Washington. Once again, a great contributor to the Real Kyper at Noon show. So that's where we're at on this first day of off season. Tomorrow we'll get Doug MacLean. We'll get his thoughts on all of it. And yeah, we might catch him a little crusty on a few things, but he'll acknowledge again what a great effort it was through all 2 months. The players, the league, the television crews, the media, certainly they all put us in a position to continue to do what we love to do best, and that's talk hockey and bring it to you all who love to do the same thing. So we're going to be back again tomorrow on the Real Kyper at Noon show with Doug MacLean. But till then, have a great day, have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow.